Prologue. One by one, the cats crept into the cave. Their fur was streaked with mud, and their eyes stretched wide with fear, reflecting the cold moonlight that filtered through a crack in the roof. They crouched low, with their bellies close to the ground, their gazes flickering from side to side, as if they expected to see danger lurking in the shadows. The glimmer of moonlight was caught in pools of water on the cave floor. It lit up a forest of pointed stones, some rising from the ground and others hanging from the cave roof. Some of the stones joined in the middle to form slender trees of gleaming white rock. Wind gusted through them, ruffling the cat's fur. The air smelled damp and clean, and was filled with the distant roar of falling water. A cat stepped out from behind one of the pointed stones. He was long-bodied, with lean, muscular limbs, and his pelt was completely covered in mud that had dried into spikes, so that he looked like a cat carved in stone.
Welcome. Moonlight lies on the water. It is time for a telling, according to the laws of the tribe of endless hunting.
Stoneteller, have you had a sign? Have the tribe of endless hunting spoken to you?
Is there hope at last?
I've seen the words of the tribe of endless hunting in the patterns of moonlights on the rock, in the shadows cast by the stones, in the sound of raindrops as they fall from the roof. Yes, they have told me there is hope.
Then you know we'll rid us of this dreadful danger?
Yes, Craig. The tribe of endless hunting has promised me that a cat will come. A silver cat not from this tribe, who will rid us of Sharptooth once and for all.
Are there other cats? Not in a trap of rushing water?
There must be.
I've heard tell of strangers, though we've never seen none here in our lifetimes. But when will the silver cat come?
Yes, when?
Is it really true?
Yes, it is true. The tribe of endless hunting has never lied to us. I have seen the sheen of a silver fur myself in a moonlit pool.
But when?
The tribe of endless hunting has not shown that to me. I do not know when the silver cat will come, or from where, but we will know it when he arrives. Until then, cats of my tribe, we can only wait.
Chapter 1. Stormfur opened his eyes, blinking away sleep, and struggled to remember where he was. Instead of his nest of reeds in the REUPLOAD camp, he was lying curled in dry, crunchy bracken. Above his head was the earth roof of a cave, crisscrossed with tangled roots. He could hear a rhythmic roaring sound faintly in the distance. At first, it puzzled him. Then he remembered how close they were to the sun-drowned water, washing endlessly onto the edge of the land. He flinched as a vision burst into his mind of how he and Brambleclaw had struggled in the water for their lives. He spat, still tasting the salty tang at the back of his throat. At home in RiverClan, he was used to water. His was the only clan that could swim comfortably in the river that ran through the forest. But not this surging, salty, pushing and pulling water, too strong even for a RiverClan cat to swim in safely. Other memories came rushing back. StarClan had sent cats from each of the 4 clans on a long, dangerous journey to hear what Midnight had to tell them. They had fought their way across unknown country, through 2-leg nests, facing attacks from dogs and rats, to make the last incredible discovery. That Midnight was a badger. Stormfur felt ice creeping along his limbs as he recalled Midnight's dreadful message. 2-legs were destroying the forest to make a new thunder path. All the clans would have to leave, and it was the task of StarClan's chosen cats to warn them and lead them to a new home. Stormfur sat up and looked around the cave, down the tunnel that led out onto the cliff top, along with a gentle current of fresh air that carried the scent of salt water. Midnight the badger was nowhere to be seen. Close beside Stormfur, his sister, Feathertail, was sleeping, her tail curled over her nose. Just beyond her was Tawnypelt, the fierce ShadowClan warrior. Stormfur was relieved to see that she was resting quietly, as if the rat bite she had suffered in the two-leg place was troubling her less. Midnight's store of herbs had yielded something to soothe the infection and help her sleep. On the opposite side of the cave, a little way apart, was the WindClan apprentice Crowpaw, his dark gray pelt barely visible among the fronds of bracken. Nearest the cave entrance, Tawnypelt's brother, Brambleclaw, was stretched out beside Squirrelpaw, who slept in a tight ball. Stormfur felt a stab of jealousy at the sight of the two ThunderClan cats close together, and tried to push it away. He had no right to admire Squirrelpaw, and her courage and bright optimism as much as he did, when they came from different clans. Brambleclaw would make her a much better mate. Stormfur knew that he ought to rouse his companions so that they could begin their long journey back to the forest. Yet he was strangely reluctant.
Let them sleep a little longer. We'll need all our strength for the last ahead.
Shaking scraps of bracken from his pelt, he picked his way across the sandy floor of the cave and out through the tunnel. A stiff breeze ruffled his fur as he emerged onto the springy grass. He was dry at last, after his near drowning the night before, and sleep had refreshed him. He stood gazing around him. Just ahead was the edge of the cliff, and beyond it lay an endless stretch of shimmering water, reflecting the pale light of dawn. Stormfur opened his jaws to drink in the air and catch the scent of prey. Instead, his senses were flooded by a strong reek of badger. He caught sight of Midnight sitting on the highest point of the cliff, her small, bright eyes fixed on the fading stars. In the sky behind her, on the far side of the moorland, a strip of creamy light showed where the sun would rise. Stormfur padded over, dipping his head respectfully before sitting beside her.
Good morning, Grey Warrior. Sleep you have enough?
Yes, thanks, Midnight.
Stormfur still found it strange to be exchanging friendly greetings with her, when badgers had always been deadly enemies of the warrior clans. Yet Midnight was no ordinary badger. She seemed closer to StarClan than any warrior, except perhaps the medicine cats. She had traveled far and somehow had found the wisdom to foretell the future. Stormfur gave her a sidelong glance, to see her eyes still fixed on the remaining stars in the dawn sky.
Can you really read signs out there from StarClan?
Much is to be read everywhere. In the stars, in running water, in flash of light on waves. Whole world speaks if ears are open to listen.
I must be deaf then. The future seems dark to me.
Not so, Grey Warrior. See the sky? Morning stars shine bright. StarClan has seen our meeting. Pleased they are and hope they will give in dark days coming.
Stormfur gazed up at the brilliant point of light. He was no medicine cat, accustomed to sharing tongues with their warrior ancestors. His task was to offer his strength and skill in the service of his clan. And now, it seemed, of all the forest cats, Midnight had made it clear that each and every clan would be destroyed if they could not ignore the ancient boundaries and work together for once.
Midnight, when we go home...
Hey, I'm starving! Where's the prey around here?
Budge up and let the rest of us out. Then we might be able to tell you.
Squirrelpaw bounced forward a few paces, and the WindClan apprentice emerged, followed closely by Feathertail. She stretched with pleasure in the sunlight.
The sunlight feels so good.
Stormfur got up and bounded over the tough moorland grass so he could touch noses with his sister. He had not been one of StarClan's original chosen cats, but he had insisted on coming on the journey to protect Feathertail. With their mother dead and their father living in a different clan, the two cats were much closer than ordinary siblings. Midnight lumbered after him and nodded a greeting to the cats.
Good morning, Stormfur, and good morning, Midnight. Tawnypelt's shoulder is doing much better this morning. She says it hardly hurts at all. That burdock root you gave her really helped.
Root is good. Now injured warrior travel well.
As she spoke, Tawnypelt herself appeared from the tunnel. Stormfur was relieved to see that she looked stronger after her long sleep and was scarcely limping at all. Following Tawnypelt, her brother, Brambleclaw, pushed his way out of the tunnel and stood blinking in the growing light.
The sun's nearly up. It's time we were on our way.
But we have to eat first! My belly is growling louder than a monster on the Thunder Path. I can eat a fox, fur and all.
We'll pick up some prey as we go. And once we get back to the woods where we made camp, we'll have a proper hunt.
Bossy furball.
We can't delay our journey back too long, though. We need to get home as soon as possible.
Stormfur is right. Who knows what's happening at home? There's no time to waste.
A murmur of agreement rose from the other cats. Even Crowpaw, who usually challenged Brambleclaw's decisions even more than Squirrelpaw, had nothing to say. With a slight shock, Stormfur realized that their long journey and the threat to all their clans had changed them from a group of squabbling rivals into a unified force with a single purpose: to save their clanmates and the warrior code that had protected them for so long. A warm feeling of belonging swept over Stormfur. His loyalty toward RiverClan was complicated, knowing how their half-clan heritage made other warriors suspicious of him and Feathertail. But here he knew he had found friends who judged him without thinking about clan differences all the time.
The thanks of all the clans go with you, Midnight. We are very grateful for your help.
Time is not yet for farewell. I come with you as far as woods, make sure you'll know right path.
Midnight lumbered off across the moor. Ahead of them, the sky had become too bright to look at as the sun began to edge its way above the horizon. Stormfur blinked gratefully at the yellow light. The setting sun had guided them on their journey to find the sun-drowned place. Now the rising sun would guide them home.
Well, what are we waiting for?
Without waiting for the other cats to agree, Squirrelpaw dashed off to overtake Midnight. Her clanmate Brambleclaw followed more slowly, looking deep in thought, as if he were imagining all the difficulties they would have to face on their way back to the forest. At his side, Tawnypelt seemed refreshed from her night's rest, and even though she was still limping, her eyes showed nothing but determination to make the long journey home. Feathertail trotted with her tail up, clearly enjoying the bright morning, while Crowpaw loped along beside her, keeping his ears pricked and his muscles tense, as if he were already anticipating trouble. As it climbed higher, the sky became a deep, clear blue, dotted with fluffy scraps of cloud. The weather was warm and kind for so late in leaf fall. A breeze swept over the grass, and Stormfur's mouth watered as he caught the scent of rabbit. Out of the corner of his eye, he spotted a white tail bobbing as the rabbit vanished over the crest of a gentle slope. Instantly, Crowpaw darted after it.
Wait, where are you going? Does he ever listen?
He won't be long. You can hardly expect him to ignore a rabbit when it pops up right under our noses.
I'll go fetch him.
No need for that. I'm back. Here, that didn't take long, did it? I suppose we're allowed to stop and eat.
Of course. Sorry, Crowpaw. I'd forgotten how fast WindClan cats can be. This moorland must feel like home to you.
Crowpaw acknowledged the apology with a curt nod as all 6 cats crowded around the fresh kill. Stormfur stopped short when he noticed a glow of admiration in Feathertail's eyes.
Surely she can't be interested in Crowpaw. All he ever does is argue and push himself forward as if he's already a warrior. A cat from another clan, and an apprentice at that, has no right to start batting after Feathertail. And what does Feathertail see in him? Doesn't she know the problems this sort of thing could cause? Hadn't you learned that from her own parents? Now that I think about it, do I have any right to criticize her when I feel the same about Squirrelpaw? Well, any cat would like Squirrelpaw, right? She's brave, intelligent, but I know better than to start something with a cat from another clan when we can't possibly have a future together. I'm probably just overreacting. After all, any cat might admire Crowpaw's speed in catching us prey when we're all hungry. Surely that's all Feathertail's feeling.
While the cats ate, Midnight waited a few paces away. Stormfur saw her tearing at the moorland grass with her strong, blunt claws, snuffling up the grubs and beetles she disturbed. Her eyes were screwed up, as if she found it hard to search for food in the strong sunlight, but she said nothing. As soon as the cats had eaten all they could of Crowpaw's prey, they set off once more toward the rising sun. Even with midnight to lead them by the most direct route, it was sun-high by the time they reached the crest of a gentle hill and saw the edge of the woods in front of them. The shade underneath the trees looked as inviting as running water to Stormfur after traveling through the heat of the unprotected moorland. For one brief moment, he let himself imagine an afternoon of hunting, then settling down full-fed for a sleep under the arching fronds of the bracken. But he knew there was no chance of that. As they drew closer to the woods, he spotted what looked like a heap of mottled brown fur in the long grass underneath a bush. His tail twitched in rueful recognition.
Hey, Purdy, we're back.
A large round head emerged from the bundle of fur, whiskers twitching and eyes blinking in confusion that gradually turned to welcome. The old cat scrambled to his paws and took a couple of paces toward them, shaking bits of dead leaf from his untidy pelt.
Well, hello, young'uns. Never reckoned I'd see you again. Great StarClan. Don't move a whisker. There's a badger behind you. Just let me deal with it. I know a few fighting moves. It's okay, Purdy. This is Midnight. She's a friend. A friend? You don't make friends with a badger, young fella. You can't trust him a single mouse length.
Stormfur gave Midnight an anxious look, wondering if the badger was offended by Purdy's words. To his relief, she looked as amused as Squirrelpaw, her tiny black eyes gleaming.
Come and meet Purdy, Midnight. He guided us through Two-Leg Place.
Midnight plodded forward until she stood in front of the old Tabby Tom. Unconvinced, Purdy crouched down with his neck fur bristling and his lips drawn back in a snarl to reveal snaggly teeth. Stormfur felt a twinge of admiration for his courage, even though the badger could have flattened him with one swat of her powerful front paws.
Here is not fight. Friend of my friends is my friend also. Much of you they have told me.
Can't say I'm pleased to meet you, but I suppose you must be all right if they say so. Why are we hanging around here, young'uns? There are upwalkers and dogs all over the place. Say goodbye and let's be on our way.
Hang on! You said we could hunt, Brambleclaw.
We can.
He paused to taste the air. Stormfur did the same, and was relieved to find that, although he could distinguish several different dog scents, they were all stale. He guessed that Purdy was using the danger of dogs as an excuse to get away from Midnight.
Okay, let's split up and hunt quickly. We'll meet in that place where we camped last time. Tawnypelt, do you want to go straight there?
No, I can hunt as well as any of you.
Foolish warrior. Rest while able. Show me camping place.
Okay, Midnight.
She headed farther into the woods, following the stream to the hollow where the cats had rested on the outward. The air was cooler in the dappled shade of the trees. Stormfur began to relax, feeling safer here than on the open moorland, though the chattering stream, too shallow for fish, was no substitute for the river he loved. A pang of loss stabbed through him at the thought that, even if he saw the river again, it would not be for long. Midnight had told them that the clans would have to leave the forest as soon as the 6 cats returned. A rustle in the undergrowth reminded him of how hungry he was. It would be good to go off for a while and hunt with Feathertail, just as they did at home.
Hey, Feathertail,
do you want to hunt with me? We'd do better together.
That'd be great. Why don't we all hunt together? Me, you, and Stormfur.
No, I'm fine on my own.
But once he slipped beneath the lowest branches of the bushes, his irritation faded. His senses were alert in the hunt for prey. Before long, he spotted a mouse scrabbling among fallen leaves. Satisfied, he scraped earth over the little brown body until he was ready to collect it, and looked around for more. Soon he added a squirrel and another mouse to his hoard, which was as much as he could carry, and set off for the meeting place.
I guess it just wasn't right of me to abandon Feathertail like that. I came on this mission to look after her. I had better go back and see how she's doing.
When Stormfur reached the camping place, he saw a tawny pelt made of a hawthorn bush, her tortoiseshell fur hardly visible in the dappled sunlight. Midnight was beside her, dozing, and there was more chewed-up burdock root laid on Tawny Pelt's injured shoulder. The badger must have been. Bramble-Claw was perched above Tawny Pelt on a steeply arching tree root, obviously keeping watch, while Feathertail and Crowpaw shared a squirrel just below. As Stormfur dropped his catch in the small pile of fresh kill in the center of the hollow, Squirrelpaw appeared at the top of the slope, dragging a rabbit, and Purdy followed with a couple of mice in his jaws.
Good. We're all here. Let's eat and then get moving.
He leaped down into the hollow and chose a starling from the pile. Stormfur took one of his mice over to Feathertail, settling down next to her on the opposite side from Crowpaw.
Hello, Feathertail. Good hunting?
Brilliant, thanks. There's so much prey here. It's a pity we can't stay longer.
I know, but the danger back home is too desperate for us to delay.
I wonder what's in store for us on our way back.
Less talking, or
What? What are you... Foxes!
Chapter 2. Leafpaw wrinkled her nose at the foul scent and tried not to hiss in disgust. Shaking her head, she parted Sorreltail's tortoiseshell fur with one paw and dabbed the wad of bile-soaked moss on the tick clinging to her shoulder. Sorreltail wriggled as she felt the bile soak through her fur.
That's better. Has it gone yet?
Just give it time.
There's only one good thing about ticks. They hate mouse bile as much as we do.
Springing to her paws, she gave herself a vigorous shake and flicked the tick off her shoulder.
There. Thanks, Leafpaw.
A breeze rustled through the trees that surrounded the medicine cat's den. A few leaves drifted down. There was a chill in the morning air that warned Leafpaw of how few moons there were before Leaf Bear. This time there would be more than the cold and shortage of prey to face. Leafpaw closed her eyes and shuddered as she remembered what she had seen the day before on patrol with her father, Firestar. The biggest monster the cats had ever seen had been forging a dreadful path through the forest, scoring deep ruts into the earth and tearing up trees by their roots. The huge, shiny monster had rolled inexorably through the bracken, roaring and belching smoke while the cats scattered helplessly before it. For the first time, Leafpaw began to understand the danger to the forest, which had been prophesied twice now. Once in Bramble-Claw's dream that had sent him on the journey with Squirrelpaw, and once in Cinderpelt's vision of fire and tiger. The doom that had been foretold was coming upon the forest, and Leafpaw did not know what any cat could do to stop it.
Are you okay, Leafpaw?
Leafpaw blinked. The vision of smoke, splintered trees, and shrieking cats faded away, to be replaced by soft green ferns and the smooth gray rock where Cinderpelt made her den. She was safe. ThunderClan was still here. But for how long?
Yes, I'm fine.
Firestar had ordered the patrol to keep quiet about what they had seen until he had decided how to break the news to the clan.
I've got to go and wash this mouse bile off my paws.
I'll come with you. Then we can go along the ravine and pick up some fresh kill.
Leafpaw led the way into the main clearing. Whitepaw and Shrewpaw were scuffling outside the apprentice's den in warm shafts of early morning sunlight, while Ferncloud's 3 kits watched them with huge, admiring eyes. Their mother sat at the entrance to the nursery, washing herself while keeping one eye on her litter. The Dawn Patrol, Dustpelt, Mousefur, and Spiderpaw, were just pushing their way into the clearing through the gorse tunnel, Dustpelt's eyes narrowing with pleasure as he caught sight of Ferncloud and his kits. Leafpaw gazed at the busy, peaceful camp, and could hardly keep back a wail of despair. As soon as the apprentices spotted Leafpaw, they stopped their practice fight and stared at her, then started whispering urgently together. Even the cats in the returning patrol gave her an uneasy look as they padded over to the fresh kill pile. Leafpaw knew that rumors about yesterday's patrol were starting to fly around the camp.
At daybreak, Firestar had called his deputy, Graystripe, Leafpaw's mother, Sandstorm, and Cinderpelt into a meeting in his den, and every cat had begun to suspect that something unusual had happened the day before. Before she and Sorreltail could reach the gorse tunnel, Firestar appeared from his den at the foot of the high rock. Graystripe and Sandstorm followed him out into the clearing, with Cinderpelt limping after them. Firepaw leaped to the top of the rock, leaving the other 3 cats to find comfortable places to sit at its base. In the slanting, leaf-fall sun, his flame-colored pelt blazed like the fire that gave him his name.
Let all cats old enough to catch their own prey join here beneath the high rock for a clan meeting.
Leafpaw felt her belly lurch as Sorreltail nudged her gently toward the front of the gathering cats.
You know what he's going to say, don't you?
Yeah.
I knew something weird happened yesterday. You all came back looking out the whole of ShadowClan clawing at your tails.
I wish it were just that.
Cats of ThunderClan. I don't know if any clan leader has ever had to take his clan into the darkness that I see ahead. Some time ago, Ravenpaw warned me about more two-leg activity on the Thunderpath. Back then, I didn't think it was important, and there was nothing we could do anyway, because that is not our territory. But yesterday...
A tense silence had fallen in the clearing. Firestar did not often sound so serious. Leafpaw could see how reluctant he was to go on, how he had to force himself to speak.
My patrol was not far from Snake Rocks when we saw a two-legged monster leave the Thunderpath. It tore into the earth and pushed trees over.
But that's ridiculous. Monsters never leave the Thunderpath.
This isn't another one of his dreams, is it? A tough bit of fresh kill? Too late at night?
Shut up and listen.
I saw it too.
Dead silence followed his words. Leafpaw watched the cats glance at one another with uncertainty and fear in their eyes. Sorreltail turned to Leafpaw.
Is that really what you saw?
Yes, you can't imagine what it was like.
What does Cinderpelt have to say? Has StarClan shown you anything?
The medicine cat rose to her paws and faced the clan, her blue eyes steady. Of all the cats, even Firestar, she seemed the calmest. Before she replied, she looked up to meet Firestar's gaze. Leafpaw could almost see flashing between them the memory of the prophecy of fire and tiger that Cinderpelt had seen in a clump of blazing bracken. She wondered how much they had decided to tell the clan in the meeting that had just ended. Then Firestar nodded as if he was giving Cinderpelt permission to speak. She acknowledged his signal with a brief dip of her head.
The signs from StarClan are not clear. I see a time of great danger and change for the forest. A terrible doom hangs over us all.
Then you have had warnings about this. Why haven't you told us before?
Don't be mouse-brained. What good would it have done? What could we do? Leave the forest? And go where? Wandering around a strange country with Leaf Bear coming on? You might fancy that, Mousefur, but I don't.
If you ask me, Brambleclaw and Squirrelpaw had the right idea getting out when they did.
Leafpaw wanted to leap to the missing cat's defense, but she made herself sit still and keep quiet. She was the only cat in the clan who knew that Squirrelpaw and Brambleclaw had left on a mission from StarClan to try to save the forest from this terrible danger. Stormfur and Feathertail, Graystripe's RiverClan children, had gone with them, and cats from WindClan and ShadowClan too. However much their clanmates missed them, Leafpaw knew it was for the good of all the clans that they had gone.
Yet the danger's here now, and the missing cats haven't returned. Did that mean they failed? Does this mean StarClan failed in spite of the warnings they've sent?
Cinderpelt's calm gaze rested on the hushed and waiting clan.
There will be great danger, but I do not believe that ThunderClan will be destroyed.
The clan cats looked at one another, bewildered and afraid. The silence seemed to stretch out for 1,000 heartbeats. Faced with the terror of approaching monsters, few of the clan could believe Cinderpelt's reassurances. Ferncloud swept her tail protectively around her 3 kits, drawing them into the shelter of her flecked gray fur.
What are we going to do?
We'll do something. We'll show those two legs. This is our place.
And how do you propose doing that? When have two legs ever cared about us? They do what they want.
Their monsters will frighten all the prey. We already know the forest is emptier than it's ever been. And Leafbear is coming. What are we gonna eat?
We can't decide what to do until we know more. What happened yesterday was near Snake Rocks, well away from here. It's possible that the two legs won't come any farther.
Then why would StarClan send any warning at all? We gotta face it, Firestar, we can't pretend this isn't happening.
I'll arrange extra patrols, and I'm going to try speaking to ShadowClan. This was near their border, and they may have had trouble too.
You can't believe anything ShadowClan tells you. They wouldn't give you a mouse tail if you were starving.
Maybe not. But if the two legs have invaded their territory, they might be prepared to talk, if it meant we could help one another.
And hedgehogs might fly.
He turned away from Firestar and muttered something into the ear of his mate, Brightheart, who pushed her nose into his fur as if she were reassuring him.
Everyone must keep alert. If you see anything unusual, I want to know. We survived the flood and the fire. We survived Tiger Star's dog pack, and the threat from Scourge and Blood Clan. We will survive this too.
He leaped down from the rock to show that the meeting was at an end. Immediately the cats in the clearing broke into anxious little knots, discussing what they had just heard. Firestar and Cinderpelt spoke briefly together, and then Cinderpelt padded over to Leafpaw.
Firestar is going to see ShadowClan right away. He wants you to come too.
Why me?
He wants both medicine cats with him. He thinks that if we're there, Blackstar will realize that ThunderClan isn't looking for a fight. All the same, Leafpaw, I hope you've practiced your fighting moves recently.
Yes, Cinderpelt.
Good.
With a wave of her tail, she led the way to where Firestar was waiting at the entrance to the Gorse Tunnel. Graystripe and Brackenfur were with him.
Let's go. And remember, I don't want any trouble. We're only going to talk.
Try telling that to ShadowClan. If a patrol catches us on their territory, they'll claw us as soon as they see us.
Let's hope not. If the two legs are threatening both our clans, we can't afford to waste our strength in fighting one another.
Graystripe still looked doubtful, but he said nothing more as Firestar led them up the ravine toward the ShadowClan border. Leafpaw kept her ears pricked for any unusual sounds, and every hair on her pelt stood on end. The forest that had been safe for as long as she could remember was suddenly a frightening place, invaded by the two legs and their monsters. Firestar led his patrol directly towards Snake Rocks, and soon Leafpaw realized that he was heading for the spot where the monster had left the Thunder Path. Before they came in sight of it, she picked up the reek of the monster and the rich, earthy smell of the torn ground. When she came to the top of the slope above the Thunder Path, she stopped and peered through a clump of bracken. Just below her, a swath of churned-up grass stretched as far as the Thunder Path. Trees lay on the ground, their roots tangling in the air. Everything was silent. Leafpaw couldn't hear a single bird or the scuffling of prey in the grass. But the monster had gone, and when she opened her jaws to drink in the air, the scent of two legs was stale. Even the reek of the monster was beginning to fade.
They haven't been here today. Perhaps they finished whatever they were doing.
I wouldn't count on it.
This is terrible. Why are the two legs destroying our home, Firestar?
Why do two legs do anything? If we knew that, our lives would be a lot easier.
Skirting the edge of the damaged area, he led the way along the Thunder Path. Leafpaw's belly lurched as she saw that more trees had been felled in ShadowClan's territory, and more ground had been churned up. Every one of the ThunderClan cats stopped to stare across the hard black surface. Brackenfur dropped into a crouch as if he were about to spring into attack, but there was no enemy to fight.
Look! You were right, Firestar! ShadowClan is having exactly the same trouble!
Then that should make it easier to talk to Blackstar.
Cinderpelt gave the scarred area a long look before turning away, shaking her head. Though she said nothing, her blue eyes were filled with dread and confusion. A monster roared by on the Thunder Path, smaller than the tree-eating monsters, but still deafeningly noisy. Leafpaw flinched, half expecting it to veer into the forest where they were standing. but it stayed on the thunderpath and growled away until it vanished among the trees. Another monster followed it. Then a third raced along in the opposite direction.
Yeah, I really don't want to cross here.
We'll cross the stream by 4 trees and go through the tunnel. And just hope we don't meet any ShadowClan warriors on this side of the Thunderpath.
When they reached the stream, Firestar crossed in a couple of bounds by a stepping stone in the middle. Leafpaw kept an eye on her mentor, making sure that Cinderpelt crossed safely in spite of the old injury to her leg from a Thunderpath accident seasons before. Then she followed her across as Firestar climbed the opposite bank. A light breeze was blowing toward them, carrying the rank scent of ShadowClan. At the border, Firestar and Greystripe renewed the scent markings, before Firestar led the way toward the tunnel under the Thunderpath. To Leafpaw's relief, there was no sign of ShadowClan cats in this section of their territory.
I remember the elders telling me stories about ShadowClan's dark-hearted history. There was that murderer Brokenstar who had killed his own father, and treacherous Tigerstar who made himself ShadowClan leader when he was exiled from ThunderClan. Blackstar hasn't caused any trouble so far, but I know Firestar doesn't really trust him.
As she followed him into the tunnel, she admired him even more for his courage in trying to make allies of his old enemies for the sake of the forest. Leafpaw shivered as she plunged into the gloomy silence beneath the Thunderpath, broken only by the drip of water and the plashing of their paws in the mud that covered the bottom of the tunnel. On the ShadowClan side, the harsh scent was stronger than ever. The ground under Leafpaw's paws was dank and marshy, covered with coarse, scrubby grass. Here and there were pools fringed with reeds. There were few tall trees, unlike those that sheltered the ThunderClan camp. It felt like another world.
The ShadowClan camp is this way. Leafpaw and Cinderpelt, keep close to me. Greystripe and Brackenfur, spread out and keep watch. And remember that we're not looking for trouble.
Leafpaw padded behind Firestar as they headed deeper into ShadowClan territory. She hated the way her paws sank into mud at every step. She kept wanting to stop to flick away the moisture.
How do ShadowClan cats put up with this every day of their lives? Surely they would have grown wet paws by now.
Her muscles began to ache from the strain of keeping alert. When Brackenfur called out, she jumped nervously, and then hoped that no cat had noticed.
Firestar, come and look at this.
Brackenfur pointed with his tail to a thin piece of wood, too smooth and regular to be the branch of a tree, standing upright in the ground about the height of a cat. Firestar padded over to and sniffed at it suspiciously.
It reeks of 2 legs.
There's another over there, and another, all in line.
As she bounded toward the next piece of wood, the bushes in front of her rustled and 3 cats stepped out into the open. She quickly recognized Russetfur, the dark ginger she-cat who was ShadowClan's deputy. The other warriors, a dark gray Tom and a lean tabby with a torn ear, were strangers to her.
Uh-oh.
Greetings, Russetfur.
You're trespassing in our territory.
With a flick of her tail, she summoned her warriors forward. Leafpaw barely had time to dodge as the dark gray Tom sprang at her. She felt claws rake down her side as she rolled away and scrambled to her paws, trying to remember her fighting moves. She caught a glimpse of Cinderpelt and Russetfur stalking around each other. A tail length away, Greystripe had the tabby pinned down, while Brackenfur and the other Tom writhed together in a screeching bundle of gray and ginger fur.
Stop!
Chapter 3.
You lot stay here. Let me deal with this.
Stormfur stared in dismay as the old Tom shuffled forward toward the foxes, his rumpled fur on end, his tail lashing back and forth. Frozen by shock, the others might have let Purdy attack and be torn to pieces if Stormfur had not stepped forward at the last moment and pushed him aside.
Well, let me get at him. I've chased off more foxes than you've had mice, young fella.
Then give the rest of us a chance.
The 2 foxes were creeping slowly up the bank, their eyes flicking from one cat to the next. Too late, Stormfur realized that he and his friends had been wrong to assume the woods held no danger for them. He saw that Crowpaw had stepped forward to shield Feathertail, while Brambleclaw tried to do the same for Squirrelpaw. but the ThunderClan apprentice slipped out from the shelter of his flank and stood beside him with her ears flattened and one paw extended threateningly.
What are you doing? Treading on my tail? I can take care of myself.
You did say you could eat a fox. Now's your chance.
The foxes crept nearer. Stormfur braced himself, his gaze fixed on their narrow snouts and coldly glittering eyes, trying to guess where they would attack first. Back home, foxes weren't much of a threat to cats who kept alert. They could be avoided, but these were obviously young and spoiling for a fight, eager to defend their territory.
I'm sure the 6 of us can drive them off eventually, but not without getting seriously hurt. What's that going to mean for the journey? Oh, StarClan, help us!
Crowpaw, who was nearest to the foxes, crouched to spring. There was barely a tail length between him and the first of them when Stormfur heard a strange sound behind him, half growling and half barking. The leading fox abruptly lifted its head and stood very still. Stormfur flicked a glance over his shoulder. Midnight had lumbered forward, thrusting her way between Purdy and Feathertail until she stood in front of the foxes. She said something else in the same mixture of barks and growls. Although Stormfur could not understand what she was saying, there was no mistaking the threat in the way her shoulders hunched, or the hostility in her black eyes. Then his ears pricked in shock as the first fox barked what was obviously a reply.
I'd forgotten Midnight told us you could speak fox.
They say this is their place. To come here is to be their prey.
Fox stung to that. Tell them, if they try that again, we'll rip their fur off.
No, small warrior. Cat ripped also. Wait.
Crowpaw backed off a pace or two, still looking furious, and Feathertail pressed her nose against his flank.
I tell them you only pass through. I tell them much prey is here in woods, easier prey that does not rip fur.
The leading fox was looking confused now, perhaps out of surprise at hearing a badger speak fox, perhaps because it was taking her argument seriously. But the second, a lean dog fox with a scarred muzzle, was still glaring past Midnight at the group of cats, his teeth bared. He snarled out something that was a threat in any language. Midnight barked a single word. Taking a step forward, she raised a paw, her massive body poised to strike. Every hair on Stormfur's pelt prickled as he braced himself for a fight. Then the dog fox started to back away, growling a last curse at Midnight before turning and vanishing into the bracken. Midnight's gaze swiveled to his companion, but the other fox paused only to bark out something rapidly before following.
And don't come back, if you know what's good for you.
Stormfur relaxed, feeling his fur lie flat again. Squirrelpaw flopped down on the ground, looking relieved. All the cats, even Purdy, were gazing at the badger with new respect. Brambleclaw padded over to her and dipped his head.
Thanks, Midnight. That could have been nasty.
They might have killed us.
I suppose it's a bad time for a fight. All the same, I'd like to know why you didn't warn us about the foxes. You say you can read everything in the stars, so why didn't you tell us they'd be there?
Even though he would never have asked the question, Stormfur waited tensely for Midnight's reply.
She has told us so much already about the threat to the forest and how we must go home and lead the clans to safety. If we don't trust her, our clans will be helpless in the face of destruction. Couldn't she have just warned us about the foxes?
For a moment, the badger loomed over the WindClan apprentice, her black eyes furious. Crowpaw could not hide a flash of alarm in his eyes, though, to his credit, he did not back down. Then Midnight relaxed.
I not say everything. Everything indeed StarClan not want me to say. Much, yes, how 2 legs tear up forest, leave no place for cats to stay. But many answers lie within ourselves. This you have already learned, no?
I suppose.
Foxes say you must go now. If you still here at sunset, they attack. That dog fox, he says he tasted cat once. Liked it fine.
Well, he's not gonna taste it again.
We have to leave anyway, and we're not looking for trouble from foxes. Let's go.
They paused for a few moments to gulp down the rest of the prey. Then Midnight took the lead and brought them after a short time to the edge of the forest. The sun was dipping below the trees, and where they stood was already in shadow. In front of them, Stormfur saw yet more open moorland with a range of mountains in the distance. Over to one side were the hard, reddish shapes of the two-leg place they had traveled through on the outward journey.
Which way now?
Straight ahead. That quickest way, path where sun rises.
It's not the way we came. We came through Two-Leg Place.
And I'm not going back there. I'll climb as many mountains as you like before I'll face all those two legs again.
I'm not sure. At least we know the way through Two-Leg Place. And we've got Purdy to help us.
Stormfur half agreed with him. They had spent many frightening, hungry days wandering in Two-Leg Place, and Purdy had seemed as lost as any of them. But the mountains were unfamiliar too. Even from here, Stormfur could see that their upper slopes were bare gray rock, with a streak of white here and there that must be the first snow of the approaching leaf bear. They were far higher than high stones.
I wonder how much shelter or prey we'll find there. I agree with Feathertail. We made it through Two-Leg Place once, so we can do it again.
What do you think, Tawny Belt?
Whatever you like. There'll be problems whichever way we go. We all know that.
True enough.
Well, I think...
Squirrelpaw's green eyes had widened with an expression of horror. They seemed to be fixed on something in the distance that no other cat could see.
Squirrelpaw? What's the matter?
I don't know. Just make up your mind, Brambleclaw, and let's be off. I want to go that way if it's the quickest route. We'll waste days and days going through Two-Leg Place again.
Stormfur's whiskers began to tingle.
Squirrelpaw is right. We already know that the route among the two-leg nests is confusing and difficult. What dangers can there be in the mountains that can be worse than the rats and monsters we know we will meet in Two-Legged Place? All that matters is that we get back to the forest without delay. I think she's got a point. I've changed my mind. I vote we should go through the mountains.
Well, are you going to make up your mind or not, Brambleclaw?
Okay, the mountains it is.
What? You can't go that way, it's dangerous. What about the...
Danger is all around. Your friends' great courage will need. The path has been laid out for them in the stars.
Stormfur shot a sharp look at the old tabby.
What was Purdy trying to say when Midnight interrupted him? Does he know some particular danger in the mountains? And if so, why did Midnight stop him from telling the rest of us? And just what did she mean by the path has been laid out?
Choice is hard, young warrior. Your path before you lies, and many challenges you will have to return safe home.
Brambleclaw gazed into the badger's eyes for a long moment before padding forward a few paces across the moorland. Whatever these challenges might be, he seemed ready to face them, and Stormfur couldn't help admiring his resolve, even though he came from a rival clan. When Purdy scrambled to his feet to follow, Midnight put out a paw to hold him back.
Get out of my way.
With them you cannot go. The way is theirs alone. Young and rash they are, and tests will be many. Their own courage they need, my friend, not yours. Too much on you they would rely.
Well, if you put it like that.
Feathertail darted up to him and gave his ears a quick lick.
We'll never forget you, Purdy, or everything you've done for us.
Just behind her, Crowpaw opened his mouth with his eyes narrowed, as if he was about to say something cutting. Stormfur froze him with a glare. He doubted they would see the old cat again, and although Purdy had made mistakes, he had stood by them and brought them safely to Midnight in the end.
Goodbye, Purdy. And thank you. We could never have found Midnight without you. And thank you, too, Midnight.
Farewell, my friends. May StarClan light your path.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
The rest of the cats said their own goodbyes and began to follow Brambleclaw out onto the moor. Stormfur brought up the rear. Glancing back, he saw Midnight and Purdy sitting side by side under the outlying trees, watching them go. It was impossible to read their expressions in the gathering dusk. Stormfur waved his tail in a last farewell.
Goodbye.
And turned his face toward the mountains. Chapter 4. At Firestar's yowl of command, Brackenfur and the Grey ShadowClan warrior broke apart. Graystripe looked up from the tabby, but still kept a paw firmly on his neck.
Let him go. We're not here to fight.
It's hard to do anything else when they jump us like that.
He stepped back, and the skinny tabby scrambled to his paws and shook his ruffled fur. Leafpaw bounded across the marshy ground to stand beside Cinderpelt, half afraid that Russetfur might still attack the medicine cat. ShadowClan's deputy was not likely to take orders from the leader of a rival clan. Russetfur flicked her tail toward the dark gray Tom.
Cedarheart, get back to camp. Warn Blackstar that we've been invaded, and fetch more warriors.
The gray warrior streaked off into the bushes.
There's no need for that. We're not invading your territory, and we're not trying to steal prey.
Then what do you want? What are we supposed to think when you trespass on our territory?
I'm sorry about that. I know we shouldn't be here. It's just that I have to speak to Blackstar. Something has happened. Something that's too urgent to wait for the next gathering.
Russetfur sheathed her claws. Leafpaw felt her racing heart begin to slow down. The ShadowClan deputy was too badly outnumbered to launch another attack, especially when she had sent away the Grey Tom, Cedarheart.
What's so urgent, then?
Firestar gestured with his tail through the sparse trees, toward the swath of destruction that the two-leg monster had left on this side of the Thunderpath.
Isn't that enough?
If you think ShadowClan is weakened...
I didn't say that, but you must have seen that we've had the same trouble in our territory. Now, are you going to drive us off, or are you going to let us talk to Blackstar?
Very well. Follow me.
She led the way through the bushes. The ThunderClan cats bunched together behind her, and the tabby ShadowClan warrior brought up the rear. Leafpaw's heart began to pound again as the scents of the strange territory flowed around her. Even the day had grown darker, clouds covering the sun so that their path was shadowed. She tried to stop herself from jumping at every sound or staring around as if there might be a ShadowClan warrior lurking behind every tree. Soon Leafpaw became aware of a stronger ShadowClan scent coming from up ahead. Russetfur led the way around a thick clump of hazel. Following her, Leafpaw stopped dead in front of a long line of cats. Lean warriors, with their muscles tensed and the light of battle in their eyes. Behind them rose a tangled wall of brambles.
That's the ShadowClan camp. It doesn't look as if Blackstar is going to invite us in.
The ShadowClan leader stood in the middle of his warriors. He was a huge white cat with black paws. His pelt showed the scars of many battles. As the ThunderClan cats appeared, he stepped forward and faced Firestar with narrowed eyes.
What's this? Does the great Firestar think he can go where he likes in the forest?
Firestar ignored the contempt in Blackstar's tone, simply dipping his head in the courteous greeting of one leader to another.
I've come to talk to you about what the two legs are doing. We have to decide what we're going to do if it carries on.
We? What do you mean we? ShadowClan does not talk with ThunderClan. We make our own decisions.
But the forest is being destroyed.
Firestar, you're panicking over nothing. Two legs are mad. Even the smallest kit knows that. True, they knocked down a few trees, but they've gone away again. Whatever is going on, it's over.
I wonder if Blackstar really believes that. Surely he can't be such a fool. Or is this just a show of bravado to convince Firestar that ShadowClan has nothing to worry about?
And if it's not over? If it gets worse? Prey has been frightened away from where the two legs have been. What if the two legs claw up more of our territories? What will you do in Leafbear, Blackstar, if you can't feed your clan?
One or two of the ShadowClan warriors looked uneasy, but their leader stared defiantly at Firestar.
We have no reason to fear Leafbear. We can always eat rats from the carrion place.
Have you forgotten what happened last time you tried that? Half your clan died from sickness.
That's true. I was ill myself. I would have died if it had been for you, Cinderpelt.
Be quiet, little cloud. The sickness was a punishment from ThunderClan because Nightcell was not a properly chosen leader. There's no danger in eating food from the carry-on place now.
There's a danger if a leader silences his medicine cat, or pretends to know more than they do about the will of StarClan.
Listen to me. I believe that great trouble is coming to the forest. Trouble that will survive. Only if we work together.
Now stop! Don't try and tell me what to do, Firestar. I'm not one of your warriors. If you have anything to say, you should do what we've always done, and bring it to the next gathering of 4 trees.
Part of Leafpaw felt that the Shadow Clan leader was right. The warrior code dictated that the business of the forest should be discussed at gatherings. There was nowhere else that cats could meet under the sacred truce of StarClan. At the same time, she knew that the Two Legs wouldn't wait until after the next full moon to continue their destruction of the forest. What else might happen by the time of the next gathering?
Very well, Black Star.
It's happening. He's giving up. The forest is going to be destroyed.
If that's the way you want it. But if the Two Legs come back, you have my permission to send a messenger into ThunderClan territory, and we will talk again.
Generous as always, Firestar, but nothing's gonna happen that we can't handle ourselves.
Mouse brain.
Firestar shot Graystripe a warning glance, but the Shadow Clan leader did not reply. Instead, he swept his tail toward Russet Fur.
Take some warriors and escort these cats off our territory. And in case you're thinking of paying us another uninvited visit, Firestar, we'll be increasing the patrols along that border. Now go.
There was nothing to do but obey. Firestar turned and signaled to his own cats to follow him. Russet Fur and her warriors gathered around them in a threatening semicircle, letting them walk away, but keeping them bunched tightly together. Leafpaw was glad when the tunnel under the Thunderpath came into sight, and more relieved still to be through it and heading for their own part of the forest.
And don't come back!
Ha! We won't. We were only trying to help you, stupid furball.
Leave it, Graystripe.
Now that they were back in their own territory, Firestar let his disappointment show. Leafpaw felt a sharp stab of compassion for him. It wasn't his fault that ShadowClan had refused to listen to reason.
Cinderpelt, maybe we should try talking to WindClan? Perhaps they've had trouble too. That could be why they've been stealing fish from RiverClan.
If they have. It was never proven. Hawkfrost was probably trying to stir up trouble by accusing them at the last gathering. All the same, Leafpaw, you might have a point. Ravenpaw said there were more Two Legs than usual on that part of the Thunderpath.
Then perhaps Firestar should talk to Tallstar?
I don't think Firestar will be talking to any more clan leaders for a while. Besides, Tallstar is a proud leader. He'd never admit that his clan is starving.
But Firestar has to do something.
Perhaps Blackstar was right, and he should wait for the gathering. But, if I get the chance, I'll have a word with him. And let's just pray that StarClan has mercy on us, whatever happens.
Sorreltail, are you there?
Leafpaw stood outside the warrior's den and tried to peer through the branches. It was early the following morning. A thick fog covered the camp and misted her fur with tiny droplets of water.
Sorreltail!
There was a scuffling sound inside the den, and Sorreltail poked her head out, blinking sleep from her eyes.
Leafpaw? What's the matter? The sun's not up yet. I was having this terrific dream about a mouse.
Sorry, but I want you to do something with me. Are you due to go out with the Dawn Patrol?
No. What's all this about?
I want to go and visit WindClan. Will you come with me?
WindClan? What if we need a WindClan patrol?
It should be okay. I'm a medicine cat apprentice, so I'm allowed to go into the territories between here and Highstones. Please, Sorreltail, I really need to know whether WindClan is having trouble too.
Though she couldn't tell Sorreltail, Leafpaw knew that a cat from every clan had been chosen by StarClan for the journey. Because of that, she suspected that every clan would be invaded by the Two Legs, but she wanted to be sure.
I'm up for it. Let's get a move on before any cat catches us and starts asking questions.
She darted across the clearing and into the gorse tunnel. Leafpaw followed, with a last glance back at the silent, sleeping camp. The fog hung thickly in the ravine, deadening the sound of their paw steps. Everything was gray, and though the dawn light was strengthening, there was no sign of the sun. The bracken was bent double with the weight of water drops, and soon the two cats' pelts were soaked.
Why did I ever leave my warm nest? Still, if it's like this on the moor, the fog will help hide us.
And muffle our scents.
But before she and Sorreltail reached Four Trees, the mist had begun to thin out. It still lay heavy on the stream, but when they climbed the opposite bank, they broke out into sunlight. Leafpaw shook the moisture from her fur, but there was little heat in the sun's rays. She looked forward to a good run across the moor to warm herself up. As they skirted the top of the hollow at Four Trees, Leafpaw felt a breeze blowing directly off the moorland. She and Sorreltail paused for a moment at the far side of the hollow, their fur blown back and their jaws parted to scent the air.
WindClan. There's something odd about it, though.
And there's no sign of any rabbits.
She hesitated for a couple more heartbeats, then led the way across the border. The two cats darted from one clump of gorse to the next, making what use they could of the scant cover on the moorland. Leafpaw's fur prickled. Her tabby and white pelt would show up starkly against the short grass. In the ThunderClan camp, she had been confident that as a medicine cat, she would not be challenged. Now, she felt small and vulnerable. She wanted to find out what she could, then hurry back to the safety of her own territory. She headed for the crest of a low hill that looked down over the thunder path, and flattened herself in the grass to peer down.
Well, there's not much to doubt about that.
Leading from the thunder path on the far side of the territory was a long scar where the moorland grass had been torn away. The track was marked by short stakes of wood like the ones Leafpaw had seen in ShadowClan territory the day before. It gouged a path across the moor and came to an abrupt halt at the foot of the hill where she and Sorreltail were crouching. A glittering monster sat silent where it ended. Leafpaw's breath came in short gasps as she imagined it scanning the moorland, ready to leap on its prey with a roar.
Where are its two legs?
Leafpaw glanced from side to side, but everything was quiet. An air of menace lay thick as fog on the scarred landscape. There was still no scent of rabbits.
Have they been frightened away? Or have the two legs taken them? Perhaps they've moved to a different part of the moor when the monster dug up their burrows.
Yuck! Can you smell that?
As she spoke, Leafpaw picked it up too, a harsh tang like nothing she had ever scented before. Instinctively, her stomach churned, and she curled her lip.
What is it?
Probably something to do with the two legs.
Leafpaw sprang to her paws and spun around to see 3 WindClan warriors racing toward them.
Uh-oh.
Before Leafpaw could decide whether to run or stay to talk, the WindClan cats had surrounded them. With a sinking heart, she recognized the aggressive deputy Mudclaw, with the tabby warrior Tornir and another tabby Tom she did not know. She would rather have dealt with the clan leader, Tallstar, or Firestar's friend One Whisker, who were both more likely to listen to her explanations.
Why are you trespassing in our territory?
I'm a medicine cat apprentice. I came to
spy! Don't think we don't know what you're up to.
Now that the WindClan cats were up close, Leafpaw could see how thin they were. Their bristling pelts hardly covered their ribs. Fear scent came off them in waves, almost drowning the scent of their fury. They were obviously short of food, but that didn't explain why they were so much more hostile than ShadowClan had been.
I'm sorry, we were only...
Attack!
Run!
She leaped back from Tornir's outstretched claws. Spinning around, she fled for the border, her belly close to the ground and her tail streaming out behind her. Sorreltail raced along at her side. Leafpaw dared not look over her shoulder, but she could hear the shrieks of the pursuing cats hard on their paws. The border was in sight, but she barely had time to realize that they were bearing too far toward the river when scent markers flooded over her. WindClan and RiverClan scents mixed together.
Oh no, we're in RiverClan territory now.
Keep going. It's only a narrow strip between here and ThunderClan territory.
Leafpaw risked a glance to see if the WindClan patrol was still pursuing them. They were. They must be so furious that they hadn't noticed the border, or did not care.
They're gaining on us. We'll have to fight. We can't lead them onto our territory.
She and Sorreltail whirled to face their attackers. Leafpaw braced herself, wishing desperately that she had never thought of entering WindClan territory, and especially that she had not brought Sorreltail into danger with her. As Mudclaw leaped at her, Leafpaw saw a streak of golden fur shoot out from a nearby bush. It was Mothwing, the medicine cat apprentice from RiverClan. Then Mudclaw's body crashed against her, and she was rolling on the ground, squirming to escape the flurry of raking claws. She tried to twist around and sink her teeth into his neck, but there was a wiry strength in the deputy's lean body that trapped her helplessly like a piece of prey. Leafpaw felt his claws rake across her side and bury themselves in her shoulder. With a massive effort, she shook him off, trying to bring her hind paws up to attack his belly. Suddenly, the weight lifted, and Mudclaw was scrabbling for a foothold beside her. Leafpaw staggered to her paws to see Mothwing cuffing him hard over both ears.
Get off our territory, and take your mangy friends with you!
Mudclaw aimed a final blow at her, but he was already backing away. Sorreltail sprang up from where she had Tornir pinned down and bit hard on his tail before releasing him. He fled, yowling after the clan deputy. The other tabby warrior had already vanished. Mothwing turned back to the ThunderClan cats. Her golden tabby fur was hardly ruffled, and her amber eyes gleamed with satisfaction.
Having trouble?
Thanks, Mothwing. I don't know what we would have done without you. Sorreltail, have you met Mothwing? She's Mudfur's apprentice, but she was trained as a warrior first.
A good thing she was. We bit off more than we could chew there.
I'm sorry we're on your territory. We'll go right away.
Oh, there's no hurry.
Mothwing did not try to question them about why they were there, or what they had done to annoy WindClan.
You look pretty shaken. Rest for a bit, and I'll find you some herbs to calm you down.
She vanished among the bushes, leaving Leafpaw and Sorreltail with nothing to do but sit and wait for her.
Is she always this careless about the warrior code? She doesn't seem to understand that we shouldn't be here.
I think it's because I'm a medicine cat apprentice, too.
Even medicine cats have to stick to the warrior code, and I can't see Cinderpelt being so welcoming to other clans. Of course, Mothwing's mother was a rogue, wasn't she? That could explain it.
Mothwing is a loyal RiverClan cat. It doesn't matter who her mother was.
I never said it did. But that might be why she's more relaxed about the clan boundaries.
Mothwing returned at that moment with a wad of herbs in her jaws. The ThunderClan apprentice drank in the scent of thyme. She remembered Cinderpelt telling her how good it was for calming anxieties.
There, eat some of that, and you'll soon feel better.
Leafpaw and Sorreltail crouched down and chewed up some of the leaves. Leafpaw imagined the juices soaking into every scrap of her body, healing the shock of their terrifying encounter with WindClan.
Are you hurt at all? I can fetch some cobwebs.
No, there's no need, thanks. We really ought to be going.
She and Sorreltail both had a few scratches, but they would stop bleeding by themselves without need for a poultice of cobwebs.
So what was that all about? What were you doing on WindClan territory?
I really hoped she wouldn't bring that up. We went to see what the two legs are up to.
When Mothwing still looked mystified, she described how she had seen the monster roaring into the forest 2 days before, tearing up the ground, and then found evidence that WindClan and ShadowClan were being destroyed in the same way. She was aware of a doubtful glance from Sorreltail. The young warrior was clearly unhappy about revealing ThunderClan's problems to a cat from a rival clan. Leafpaw shook her head impatiently. There could be no harm in taking another medicine cat into her confidence.
Firestar wants to ask the other clans what they think. But ShadowClan won't admit anything is wrong and... well, you've seen how WindClan reacted.
What can you expect? No clan is going to hurry to tell us that they're starving, losing their territory to two legs.
She passed her tongue over her lips as if she didn't much like the taste of the herbs.
We've seen nothing of these monsters in RiverClan. Everything's fine here. But it explains one thing. I've sensed panic over WindClan territory. Their scent markers on the border are filled with fear.
I'm not surprised. They're thin as anything, and there's no sense of rabbits anywhere.
Everything's changing.
And inside the clans as well. An ambitious cat might take the chance of...
What do you mean?
Oh, no, I don't know.
I wonder what's going on inside that head of hers. I'm too young to remember Tigerstar, the bloodthirsty cat who had plotted to make himself leader of ThunderClan. When his murderous plans failed, he had been prepared to destroy the whole clan for vengeance. Does Mothwing know of another cat with ambition like that? Surely the forest could never produce another Tigerstar.
Her thoughts were interrupted when Mothwing sprang to her paws, her head turned toward the river.
A patrol is coming! Come this way, quickly!
She slipped between two bushes. Leafpaw and Sorreltail followed. A few moments later they came into the open and found themselves on the slope that led up to the ThunderClan border.
If your clan is short of prey, come and see me. We can always spare a few fish. Now run!
Leafpaw and Sorreltail streaked up the slope and plunged for cover into more bushes. Though Leafpaw braced herself for accusing snarls behind her, they reached the border unseen.
Thanks, StarClan, for that.
Leafpaw looked back through the branches. Mothwing was standing where they had left her. A moment later, the undergrowth parted, and a large, sleek-furred tabby warrior emerged. Leafpaw recognized Mothwing's brother Hawkfrost. 2 other warriors followed him. Hawkfrost stopped to talk to his sister, but never once glanced in the direction of the ThunderClan cats. Looking at the warrior's massive shoulders and strong muscles, Leafpaw was relieved that he had not caught them trespassing. Unlike Mothwing, he kept strictly to the warrior code, and he was unlikely to listen to explanations.
That's funny. I feel like Hawkfrost really reminds me of some other cat. I can't remember exactly who, though.
Come on. Are you going to stare at those RiverClan warriors all day? It's time we would be getting back, and then you can decide how much you're going to tell Firestar.
Chapter 5. Stormfur's paws scrabbled on smooth gray rock. Heaving himself upward, he reached the top of the boulder and turned to look down at his friends, his fur buffeted by the icy breeze.
Come on, it's not so bad if you take a leap at it.
Following the rising sun, he and the other cats had left the moorland behind and begun to climb. Now, as Sunhigh approached on the 2nd day of their homeward journey, the mountains they had seen from a distance stretched up in front of them, even bigger than they had imagined, their sheer slopes black and forbidding, with wisps of cloud floating around their peaks. The soil beneath the cat's paws was rough with pebbles, and little grew there except sparse grass and twisted thorn trees. There was no clear path. Instead, they followed winding, narrow clefts and often had to turn back when they came up against rock walls with no way through. Thinking wistfully of the river sliding through deep, cool grasses at home, Stormfur half wished they had decided to return through Two-Leg Place instead. Squirrelpaw bunched her hind legs and launched herself in a massive leap, following Stormfur up the boulder that blocked their path. She missed the top and began to slide back.
Whoa, oh, damn, mouse dung!
Hey there, need some help?
Stormfur leaned over and sank his teeth into her neck fur, steadying her until her scraping claws propelled her up the last tail length to sit beside him.
Thanks. I know my name's Squirrelpaw, but I never thought I'd wish that I was a squirrel.
We'll all wish we were squirrels if we get much more of this.
Hey, stand back, will you? How can I get up there with you 2 furballs standing in the way?
Stormfur and Squirrelpaw stepped back from the top of the boulder, and a moment later Crowpaw joined them, his long limbs managing the jump easily. Ignoring the others, he turned back to help Feathertail, who scrambled up with a muttered curse as one of her claws snagged on the rock. Stormfur was worried that the rat bite in Tawny Pelt's shoulder would stop her from climbing the boulder, and wondered if they would have to try finding a way around it. But to his relief, her leap brought her almost to the top, where Crowpaw grabbed her by the scruff and hauled her up. Brambleclaw joined them last of all, shaking his ruffled tabby fur as he stood on top of the boulder and looked around. This close to sun-high, there were few shadows to point them in the right direction, and nothing but a sheer precipice in front of them, hiding what lay ahead.
I suppose we go that way.
He flicked his tail toward a narrow ledge leading across the face of the rock.
What do you think, Stormfur?
Stormfur felt his pelt prickle as he looked at the ledge. A few straggling bushes had rooted themselves in cracks, but apart from that, the rock was bare, and if they slipped, there would be nothing to hold on to.
We can try. I'm surprised he actually asked for my opinion. There's nowhere else unless we go back.
Okay, bring up the rear, will you? We don't know what might be lurking around here, and we need a strong cat to watch our back.
Stormfur felt a warm glow that spread from his ears to his tail tip at the ThunderClan cat's praise. Brambleclaw was neither his leader nor his mentor, but Stormfur couldn't help feeling strong admiration for the young warrior's courage and the way he had taken the lead on this difficult journey.
All right.
I've changed my mind. I don't want to be a squirrel anymore. I'd rather be a bird.
Stormfur brought up the rear as Brambleclaw had asked, his ears pricked for danger while he tried to hide his nervousness about the sheer drop, which tugged at him like an invisible weight. He hugged the rock face, placing each paw carefully and using his tail for balance. After a little while, the breeze grew stronger, and Stormfur's mind filled with terrifying images of himself or one of his friends blown right off the ledge and down to the ground below. After a short while, the ledge curved around the rock face, out of sight. Before Stormfur reached the turn, Tawnypelt, who was just in front of him, stopped abruptly, and from farther ahead he heard Feathertail exclaim something.
Oh no!
What's the matter?
Tawnypelt edged forward more slowly, and Stormfur followed until he could see what was ahead. His belly lurched. A gap had opened up between their ledge and the rock face. The ledge became a spur of rock, jutting out from the side of the mountain and narrowing to a point. On both sides was a dizzying drop to a valley below where a mountain stream flowed, looking thin as a mouse tail.
Do you want to go back?
Hang on a minute. There might be a way. Look over there.
Stormfur looked where his tail was pointing. On the mountainside beyond the gap, the rock face had broken away, and a narrow rift had opened up between two steep slopes. Bushes were growing there, and one or two small trees. A stream trickled down one side, overhung by grasses.
The going looks easier there, but can we get across?
Squirrelpaw lifted her head and tasted the air.
I can smell rabbits.
Stormfur measured the gap.
It's a lot wider than I like, and it'll be especially hard to jump over with a standing start. I think I can manage it, but what about Tawnypelt? She's been limping again ever since we started climbing. Even though she'll never admit it, I know her shoulder hasn't healed properly yet.
What are we waiting for? Are we going to stand around here until we grow wings?
Without any more hesitation, the WindClan apprentice launched himself across the gap. For a heartbeat, his gray-black body seemed to hang in the air. Then he was across, landing lightly on the loose stones at the edge of the drop.
Come on, it's easy!
Catching Brambleclaw's eye, Stormfur knew that the tabby warrior shared his annoyance that the apprentice hadn't waited for the rest of them to agree. Now they all had to try the leap, whether they wanted to or not, because Crowpaw would never manage to jump back onto the narrow spur of rock, and they could not leave him on his own over there. He was even less pleased when he saw Feathertail crouching at the edge of the rock with the wind buffeting her fur. Crowpaw was waiting to steady her at the other side, and she waved her plumy tail with pleasure as she realized that she had made it safely. The remaining cats bunched together on the rock. Stormfur's pelt pricked with fear as he felt the breeze grow stronger.
Okay, who's next?
I'll go. See you over there.
She pushed herself off from the rock in a tremendous leap, landing a tail length from the edge on the other side.
She's quite something.
She certainly is.
Tawnypelt, are you ready? Is your shoulder okay?
I'll be fine.
She measured the distance with a glance and then took off.
For one horrible instant, Stormfur thought she had jumped short. Her body slammed into the edge of the rock, and her front paws scrabbled frantically for a grip among the loose stones. A heartbeat later, Feathertail was on one side of her, and Squirrelpaw on the other, sinking their teeth into her neck fur and pulling her up the rest of the way.
Well done.
Tawnypelt did not reply. Her tail had fluffed out with terror. Stormfur saw Feathertail coaxing her over to the stream and encouraging her to drink.
You next?
You go. I'm fine.
But as Stormfur watched the strong tabby warrior leaping the gap, he couldn't help wishing he hadn't waited to go last. He was just about to jump when Squirrelpaw shrieked,
"Stormfur, look out!"
At the same instant, a dark shadow fell over him, and he heard the beating of wings thudding through the air. Without pausing to look up, he launched himself across the gap, catching a glimpse of his friends on the other side, scattering to the sides of the valley. He hit the ground awkwardly, falling to one side, and froze with horror as he looked up to see an enormous bird swooping down on top of him, talons extended. A cat yowled his name. Rolling away from the claws and stabbing beak, he felt the draft from the beating wings and smelled a reek of carrion. Then he was aware of Brambleclaw and Feathertail hurtling toward him, hissing and spitting with their fur standing on end. The bird veered to one side. Stormfur had a couple of heartbeats to scramble away. Then the talons hit the ground, throwing up spurts of dust. The bird let out a frustrated screech. Its wings beat strongly, carrying it up again. All three cats streaked into the shelter of a bush where Squirrelpaw and Tawnypelt were waiting.
What in the StarClan's name was that? I've never seen such a big bird.
He watched the bird climb higher until it was no more than a dot in the sky. Crowpaw wormed his way under the lower branches to join them.
An eagle. We see them in WindClan territory now and then. They prey on lambs, but elders say they've taken cats before.
In another heartbeat, it would have taken me. Thanks, Brambleclaw, Feathertail.
Ugh. Imagine what would have happened if it had spotted us a bit earlier, when we were all stuck out on that rock.
I don't want to imagine it.
I think we need to take a break after that. What about finding some prey? I sent 2 rabbits out there.
I'll go. I don't need rest. Coming, Feathertail?
But, watch out for that eagle.
When they had gone, Tawnypelt closed her eyes with an exhausted sigh, and within a couple of heartbeats, she was asleep. Stormfur curled up beside her, but he found it hard to rest. He could hear Brambleclaw and Squirrelpaw murmuring quietly together, and found he was straining his ears to make out what they were saying, envying their closeness.
I wish Squirrelpaw was in my clan instead of his. I'm more worried about Feathertail, out there alone with that apprentice. We should keep moving while we can. If we delay too long, darkness will overtake us, and we'll be forced to spend the night here.
At last he drifted into an uneasy doze. A paw prodding him in the ribs brought him back to consciousness. He blinked up into Squirrelpaw's green eyes, and his senses were flooded by the scent of rabbit.
They're back, and they brought enough fresh kill for every cat. Of course, I can eat yours if you don't want it.
Don't you dare.
Stormfur flicked her ear with his tail as he scrambled up. Crouching over his share of rabbit, he saw Feathertail and Crowpaw sitting close together as they ate. He suppressed a growl as he wondered yet again how Feathertail could possibly forget what happened when cats from different clans tried to be together. Once all the journeying cats were relaxing with full bellies, he managed to edge his sister away from the rest.
Listen, Feathertail. You and Crowpaw.
What about Crowpaw? You others are so unfair to him.
Stormfur wanted to point out that the young cat asked for trouble with the way he argued about everything, but he had enough sense not to say so to Feathertail.
That's not the point. What's gonna happen when we get back home? Crowpaw's in a different clan.
We don't even know if there will be clans anymore. We'll be leaving the forest, remember?
Do you think all clan boundaries will vanish just because we have to leave? I doubt it.
He was surprised by the flash of anger in Feathertail's eyes.
Have you forgotten already what Midnight said? The clans won't survive if they can't work together.
And have you forgotten what happens when different clans get together? Look at the way your own father has been torn between two clans. You and I nearly died because we're half clan. Tigerstar would have killed us if the ThunderClan cats hadn't rescued us.
But Tigerstar's gone now. There won't be another cat like that in the forest. And Midnight said all the clans will have to find somewhere else to live. Everything will be different.
But you and Crowpaw...
I'm not gonna talk about me and Crowpaw. I'm sorry, Stormfur. But this doesn't have anything to do with you.
Stormfur started to deliver a stinging reply, then realized that she was right. Awkwardly, he stroked her shoulder with the tip of his tail.
I worry about you, that's all.
Feathertail gave his ear a quick lick.
I know, but there's no need. Really.
Even though he did not agree with her, Stormfur said nothing.
She's my sister, and I'll do anything to make her happy. I wish Crowpaw can make her happy too, if that's what Feathertail really wants. But I can't believe that all this rivalry between the clans will vanish, whatever happens, and let them be together.
When the cats emerged from the shelter of the bush to continue their journey, they saw that the sky had grown darker. The wind had dropped, but there was a chill in the air, and clouds surged around the mountaintop, hiding the sun.
Rain on its way. That's all we need.
Then let's push on while we can.
They set off up the rift in the side of the mountain, keeping close to the sides and making what use they could of the cover from bushes, in case the eagle returned. Stormfur kept an eye on the sky. Once, he saw a tiny dot, drifting lazily above the mountainside, and knew that the fierce bird was still on the watch. They passed the source of the tiny stream, bubbling up from a crack between two rocks, and took a last drink before they pressed on. Stormfur gazed up the slope ahead, scanning it for something familiar that would show him the next source of food or shelter, and saw nothing but lifeless gray rock. The valley grew narrower, and there was even less vegetation. Stormfur felt uncomfortably exposed, but the eagle did not return. As twilight gathered, a thin, cold rain began to fall. The cat's fur was soon soaked, and there was nowhere to shelter.
We gotta stop soon. My paws are falling off.
Well, we can't stop here. We need to get out of the rain.
No. Squirrelpaw's right. We can't go on in the dark. We risk falling.
Brambleclaw's neck fur rose, and he fixed Stormfur with a furious glare. Behind him, Stormfur heard a faint murmur of distress from Feathertail.
Stop it, you two!
He realized they were within a couple of heartbeats of fighting among themselves. His growing respect for the ThunderClan cat meant that a fight was the last thing he wanted, but he could not back down and let Brambleclaw lead them on to slip over some precipice in the darkness. Then he saw Brambleclaw's fur begin to lie flat again, as the tabbies seemed to understand Stormfur's concerns.
You're right, Stormfur. Let's shelter under the rock over there. It's better than nothing.
He led the way to an overhanging rock, open on one side to the wind and rain that grew heavier still as the cats settled down, huddling together in an attempt to keep warm and dry.
Shelter? If this is shelter, then I'm a hedgehog.
You're just as prickly.
That night he slept only in brief, uncomfortable snatches, and whenever he woke, he could feel his friends shifting uneasily around him. When at last the darkness began to lift, he heaved himself to his paws, feeling stiff and bleary-eyed, and peered out of the overhang to see dense white mist swirling around them.
We must be in the clouds. I hope it lifts soon.
Do you think we should go on? If we can't see where we're going, we could walk straight over a cliff.
We manage when the mist comes down on the moors. But we know our territory by scent as well as sight.
And what about fresh kill? There's no rabbit scent up here. I'm starving.
Stormfur tried to ignore his own growling belly while Brambleclaw ventured out of their shelter and stood looking upward.
I can see for a few fox lengths. This cleft seems to go on and on. I think we'll be safe if we follow it.
He glanced at Stormfur as he spoke, a questioning look in his eyes,
as if he regretted their recent argument and wanted to be sure that the RiverClan cat agreed with him. Stormfur stepped out to join him, shivering as the mist began to soak into his fur.
Okay, lead the way. It's not like we have much choice.
Reluctantly, the other cats followed Brambleclaw out into the cold, clinging mist and padded after him up the rift. Stormfur noticed that Tawny Pelt was limping worse today, as if her leg had stiffened in the night. Midnight's burdock root had cured the infection, but Stormfur suspected her muscles had been damaged. She needed a medicine cat to look at it, but that was impossible out here. Daylight gradually grew stronger, and the swirls of cloud became paler, as if somewhere above them the sun was rising. The rift grew steadily narrower, with walls of rock closing in on either side.
I hope this isn't a dead end. We can't go back to the ledge.
She had hardly spoken when the clouds began to thin out, and the cats could see farther ahead. Stormfur found himself staring up at a sheer rock face where the sides of the valley came to a point. There didn't seem any way of climbing up, not unless they all grew wings and flew. His fur was plastered to his body by the mist, and he felt hollow with hunger.
Now what?
The 6 cats stood looking upward, a fine rain drifting around them as if the drops were light enough to be blown by the wind. Stormfur struggled with black despair.
What's the point of all this? Even if we reach home, the forest is going to be destroyed. Our hopes of helping our clans rested on the word of a badger, a creature whom we've always regarded as an enemy. And if I doubt Midnight's wisdom, what will my clanmates say when I pass her message on? They've never completely trusted me or Feathertail because of our half-clan heritage, so why should they listen now?
Then Stormfur realized that he could hear a steady roaring sound. It reminded him of the river pouring through the ravine in his home territory.
What's that? Can you hear it?
Over here, I think.
Stormfur followed him up to the valley's point and discovered a split in the rock winding upward, just wide enough for one cat at a time. Brambleclaw led the way into it, gesturing with his tail for the others to follow. Stormfur waited to bring up the rear, his fur brushing the rock on either side, with unpleasant thoughts going through his head of what would happen if the path became so narrow that they got stuck. The roaring grew louder, and after a little while the path came out on an open ledge. Broken rocks lay in front of them, rising to a ridge above their heads. A stream poured over the ridge, foaming down past the place where the cats were standing until it vanished behind a jutting boulder.
Hey, at least we can have a drink.
Be careful. One slip and you'll be crow food.
Squirrelpaw shot him a glare, but said nothing. She crept forward cautiously to the edge of the stream and crouched to lap. Stormfur and the other cats followed her. The water was ice cold, refreshing Stormfur and giving him new courage. Perhaps their scramble over these hostile mountains would soon be over. Rising to his paws again, he glanced downstream and froze in shock. Just below where the cats were drinking, the rocks fell away into a precipice. Padding warily a few paces toward it, Stormfur stretched his neck to peer over the edge, and saw the stream pounding down in a waterfall until it crashed into a pool many tail lengths below. The sound of thundering water filled his ears, making him dizzy, so that he instinctively tried to dig his claws into the rain-wet rock. The rest of the cats gathered around him, their eyes wide and horrified.
Awesome! There's prey down there, I bet!
Be careful. One slip and you'll be crow food.
Through the mist of spray that rose from the pool, Stormfur caught a glimpse of another valley like the one they had just left, where grass grew up between broken rocks and bushes lined the rock walls. Squirrelpaw was right. If there were any other living things to be found around here, it would be down there. He flicked his ears toward the place far above their heads, where the stream poured over the lip of the rock.
Doesn't look too difficult to climb. If we go down, we might never get back again.
Big deal, the net we got something to eat.
With Brambleclaw in the lead again, they began the scramble upward. They were all exhausted, their soaked fur making them clumsy. Tawnypelt in particular found the going tough, hauling herself painfully over every rock as if she had hardly any strength left. The stream bubbled up beside them, splashing over the rocks that were already wet and slippery with rain, which was falling more heavily again. Stormfur kept a wary eye on the stream, half expecting it to overflow and sweep them off the rocks. He stayed to the back of the group, trying to watch every cat, well aware that if any of them slipped, they could be washed into the pool below the waterfall. Almost as soon as that thought crossed his mind, he saw Feathertail's paws skid from under her. She slid sideways into the stream. Water surged around her as she clung to the rocks by a single paw, her jaws wide in a silent wail of shock. Stormfur bounded toward her, pushing past Tawnypelt, but before he reached her, Crowpaw had leaned out precariously over the foaming water, sunk his teeth into the scruff of Feathertail's neck, and dragged her back onto the path.
Thank you, Crowpaw.
You should be more careful. Do you think you're a clan leader with 9 lives to throw away? I saved you this once. Don't make me save you again.
I won't. I'm sorry for not watching out.
Feathertail blinked and pressed her nose against Crowpaw's muzzle. Stormfur was not sure whether he was more annoyed by his sister's carelessness or by the fact that Crowpaw had been the one to save her. He shouldered the apprentice away so that he could examine Feathertail more closely.
So you should be. Are you okay?
Yes, fine.
A louder rumbling from farther up the mountain interrupted her, drowning even the roar of the waterfall below. Stormfur looked up and froze in horror at the sight of a wall of mud, branches, and water hurtling down on them. His worst fears had come true. The mountain stream was in flood. Squirrelpaw let out a terrified yowl, and Brambleclaw sprang back toward her.
Squirrelpaw, hold on!
But the water was upon them before they could do anything. It struck Stormfur like a blow, carrying him off his paws. His legs flailed as the flood carried him down, driving him against rocks where he clawed in vain for a grip before the water swept him on again. He choked as water filled his mouth, and one of his paws caught painfully against a rock. Then there was nothing beneath him at all, and he knew he was plunging over the waterfall. There was a moment of eerie silence, broken by the whisper of rushing water. Then the roaring and pounding started up again, waiting to swallow him as he plummeted into the pool. Whirled around in the icy water, he caught a brief glimpse of Crowpaw floundering wildly before the surge closed over his head. Then more water crashed down on him, driving him under and filling his senses with churning white foam, a deafening roar, and then nothing.
I'm sorry, StarClan. I know it wasn't my mission, but I tried so hard. Please, look after our clans.
Chapter 6. Leafpaw burst up through the surface of the water, gasping for air as she scrambled to find solid ground. Managing to stand in spite of the river flowing strongly around her legs, she shook icy drops of water from her pelt. The riverbank was only a couple of tail lengths away. She shivered in the pale sun of leaffall as she looked up to see Mothwing peering down at her from an overhanging rock. The RiverClan cat's amber eyes were narrowed in amusement.
You don't fish by jumping in the river.
I know that. I slipped, that's all.
I believe you. Now come out and we'll have another go. I'll teach you to fish if it's the last thing I do.
I'm still not sure we should be doing this.
Of course we should. The rabbits and squirrels are starting to disappear thanks to the two legs. But there's still plenty of fish for every cat.
But I'd come onto RiverClan territory to get it. What would Leopardstar say if she knew?
We're both medicine cats, so clan boundaries don't matter for us like they do for other cats.
Leafpaw didn't think that was how the warrior code worked. Her friend had said much the same a couple of days earlier, when she had rescued Leafpaw and Sorreltail from the pursuing WindClan warriors.
This morning she had called to Leafpaw while she was gathering herbs near Sunning Rocks and offered to give her a fishing lesson. Leafpaw had felt very nervous about crossing the clan border, but her hunger had driven her on now that prey was becoming even scarcer in ThunderClan territory. All the same, her ears and nose were alert for the first signs of a RiverClan patrol.
Okay, crouch here beside me and look down into the water. When you see a fish, scoop it out with your paw. It's easy.
A couple of glittering fish lying on the bank showed just how easy it was for Mothwing. Leafpaw gave them a longing glance, wondering if she would ever learn.
Want some?
Leafpaw felt guilty at the thought of being full-fed while the rest of her clan went hungry. But she had not tasted fresh kill since the night before, and that had been only a stringy vole.
I shouldn't. Of course you can. Where's the harm?
Leafpaw did not wait to be asked again. She crouched down in front of the fish, tucking her paws in, and sank her teeth into the cool flesh.
Delicious. Learn how to do it, and you can take lots more for your clan.
Mothwing looked pleased. She took a few dainty bites, as if she were full-fed already and didn't care whether or not she ate. Gulping down the rest of the fish, Leafpaw told herself that she would find food for her clan to make up for it. As soon as she had finished, she settled down on the rock beside Mothwing and concentrated on the water just below, to wait for a fish of her own. An unfamiliar scent swept over her at the same instant as Leafpaw felt a paw jab hard into her ribs, tipping her over the edge of the rock and back into the river. She thrashed wildly, wondering why Mothwing was trying to drown her. Then, as her head broke the surface, she saw the huge tabby shape of Hawkfrost approaching the bank, and realized that Mothwing had done the only thing she could to hide her quickly. Her paws working gently to keep her nose just above the water, Leafpaw let herself drift downriver for a few tail lengths, until she came to a clump of reeds where she could crawl out on the ThunderClan side of the river and hide. Hawkfrost had stopped to talk to his sister, and Leafpaw realized that she would have to crouch where she was, soaked and shivering, until he went away and she could make a break across open ground to the ThunderClan border.
I'm keeping my eyes open for WindClan. I know very well they're stealing fish, and one day I'll catch them at it.
Not down here, surely. WindClan would fish closer to Fortress, if they're fishing at all.
WindClan and ThunderClan. I can scent the ThunderClan cat now.
Leafpaw shivered and shrank down in her clump of reeds.
So, the border's over there. It would be odd if you didn't scent ThunderClan.
There's something not right in the forest. Cats have gone missing from all the clans for one thing. Do you remember what the other leader said at the last gathering? That's 4 more cats besides Stormfur and Feathertail. I don't know what's going on, but I'll find out.
Leafpaw tensed. She had told Mothwing about the two-leg monsters, but obviously Mothwing had not passed on the news to the rest of her clan. Chilled by the hunger in Hawkfrost's voice, Leafpaw prayed to StarClan that she would say nothing about it now.
There's nothing wrong in RiverClan, so why should we care?
Have you got bees in your brain? This could be our chance to make RiverClan great. If the other clans are weak, we could rule over the whole forest.
What? You're the one with bees in your brain. Who do you think you are, Tiger Star?
There are worse cats to imitate.
Pure, icy fear lanced through Leafpaw. Tiger Star had been prepared to kill any cat who opposed him in his quest for supreme power. And now another cat was preparing to follow in his paw steps. Another thought sprang into her mind. This was what Mothwing must have meant when she talked about a cat with ambitions, on the day she rescued Leafpaw and Sorreltail from WindClan. She had been worried about her own brother. A few days before, Leafpaw had been sure that the forest would never produce another Tiger Star. Now she could only strain her ears, horrified, to make out what Hawkfrost would say next.
Have you forgotten what happened to Tiger Star? He failed, and now he's just a name to frighten kids with.
I shall learn from his mistakes. Our mother told us enough about him after all. He broke the warrior code, and he deserved to fail. I shall know better.
Leafpaw stared at the reeds in front of her, puzzled.
Hawkfrost's mother, Sasha, the rogue cat, told them about Tigerstar? How did she know?
Leafpaw had never met Sasha, the clanless she-cat that stayed in RiverClan for only a short while, long enough to decide that she wanted her kits to be raised as part of the clan. No cat knew where she had been before then. In her bewilderment, Leafpaw had not noticed that the wind had changed, and that a playful breeze, twisting its way upriver, had carried her scent with it.
I can smell ThunderClan. The scent's fresh, too. If one of their warriors is on our territory, I'll claw his fur off.
Above her head, Leafpaw heard Mothwing scramble to her paws.
You're right! It's this way! Come on!
Mouse brain, it's downstream.
Leafpaw didn't wait to hear any more. While he was following Mothwing, she broke out of the reeds and streaked up the bank toward the ThunderClan border. She plunged thankfully into thick bracken just on the ThunderClan side of the border. Turning to peer out again, she saw Hawkfrost padding downstream, stopping to give the clump of reeds where she had just been hiding a good sniff before turning back to Mothwing with a frustrated growl. Once again, Leafpaw was struck by the powerful tabby's resemblance to some other cat. The thought bothered her like a tick she couldn't reach, because she still couldn't remember who. She was too far away to hear what the two RiverClan cats said to each other, but after a few moments, they both continued downstream to the stepping stones and crossed to the RiverClan side of the river. When they finally disappeared into the reeds, Leafpaw drew a huge breath of relief and started trotting back to camp. The guilt she felt about her full belly was almost forgotten amid pricklings of unease about what Mothwing had said. Hawkfrost sounded as ambitious as Tigerstar, and there was no place for that when the forest was on the brink of destruction. A gleam of dying sunlight pierced the clouds and lay like a streak of blood on the forest floor. Leafpaw guessed that Cinderpelt would be wondering where she was, but she needed time to figure out how Hawkfrost and Mothwing knew so much about Tigerstar. She sat down and began to groom her drying fur. Sasha had been a rogue cat wandering the forest until she had come to RiverClan with her kits and settled briefly there. She might have visited ShadowClan when Tigerstar was leader. It was possible. Leafpaw froze.
I remember who Hawkfrost reminds me of now. Brambleclaw. And every cat knows who Brambleclaw's father was. Could it be possible that Tigerstar was Hawkfrost and Mothwing's father as well? If he was, that would make Hawkfrost and Brambleclaw half-brothers.
She was staring into the trees as if she could see the answer there, when her thoughts were interrupted by the frantic beating of wings. She looked up to see a magpie fluttering out of the bushes to land on a branch above her head.
Mouse dung!
The bushes just ahead of her rustled violently, and Graystripe appeared, glaring up at the magpie with frustration in his yellow eyes.
Missed it! I don't know what's the matter with me.
Leafpaw rose to her paws as the deputy approached, dipping her head respectfully and letting out a sympathetic purr. She hoped that her pelt was dry enough for Graystripe not to notice that she had been swimming.
Hello, Leafpaw. Sorry if I startled you. Actually, I do know what's wrong with me. I can't get Feathertail and Stormfur out of my head. I wish I knew where they've gone. Brambleclaw and Squirrelpaw, too.
Leafpaw felt another pang of guilt. She could save Graystripe so much worry if she told him what she knew about the prophecy, but she had promised the journeying cats that she would keep silent.
I feel that they're all safe, and that they'll come back to us.
Graystripe looked up with a flicker of hope in his amber eyes.
Has StarClan told you that?
Not exactly, but...
I can't help but wonder it has something to do with the two legs. Cats go missing. Two legs invade us.
His paws worked against the ground, tearing up the grass with his claws.
Graystripe, can I ask you something?
Sure, go ahead.
Did you ever meet Sasha, Hawkfrost and Mothwing's mother?
Graystripe looked at her in surprise.
Once, at a gathering.
What was she like?
Nice enough. Quiet and ready to be friendly. A lot like Mothwing to look at. But it was clear that being among with a lot of cats spooked her. I wasn't surprised when she left the forest as soon as Mothwing and Hawkfrost were old enough to do without her.
Does any cat know who their father was?
No, I always assumed it was another rogue.
Rogues?
There was the sound of paw steps behind them, and Leafpaw spun around to see Firestar approaching from the direction of the camp. The tension was clear in every hair on his flame-colored pelt.
Have you seen rogues? For StarClan's sake, that's the last thing we need right now.
No, not at all. Leafpaw was just asking about Sasha and the witch cat father Mothwing and Hawkfrost.
Firestar turned to look at Leafpaw, his green eyes puzzled.
Why do you want to know?
Leafpaw hesitated. She wasn't about to admit that she had been spending time with Mothwing in RiverClan territory.
Oh, I just saw Hawkfrost. He was patrolling on the border. Well, it's not entirely a lie.
There was no way Leafpaw was going to mention her suspicions that Tigerstar had fathered Hawkfrost and Mothwing, not when he and Firestar had been such bitter enemies.
Well, I've no idea. Sasha might have told some cat in RiverClan, I suppose.
He patted across to Graystripe and touched noses with his old friend, as if he guessed the thoughts that were troubling him. Both cats had lost children among the 6 cats that had vanished from the forest. They stared up into the trees, where a chilly wind was tugging leaves from the branches, until they drifted down to join the other dead leaves on the forest floor.
Oh, they must be cold, with no clan to shelter them each night.
At least, they have one another.
Firestar pressed himself against Graystripe's side. For a moment, both cats remained silent. Then Firestar turned to his daughter.
Leafpaw, you sometimes know what Squirrelpaw's thinking, don't you? You told us she was with the RiverClan cats. Have you any idea where they are now?
Leafpaw blinked. She couldn't deny her father the chance to know if Squirrelpaw was alive, and she wanted to know just as fiercely. She shut her eyes and summoned up her old rapport with her sister. Emptying her mind, she concentrated fiercely. She felt a surge of cold and wet, shuddering as a blast of cold wind probed her drying fur. But there was no sign of Squirrelpaw anywhere. Just water, blasting air, and endless rock. Opening her eyes, Leafpaw blinked in confusion as she realized that her fur was dry and the forest was still. She had made contact with her sister after all.
She's alive.
Beside her, Firestar's eyes lit up.
And wherever she is, I think it must be raining.
Chapter 7. Stormfur opened his eyes and blinked in light that was sharp as a claw. His breath rasped in his throat, and every muscle in his body ached. He felt too exhausted even to move. As his vision cleared, he saw that he was lying on rain-wet rock beside a pool of churning black water. His ears were ringing. When he raised his head feebly, he saw a waterfall thundering down into the pool in a whirl of foam and spray, and realized that what he could hear was the roar and crash of falling water. At once he remembered the flood that had swept him from the rocks and plunged him into the pool. How had he survived? He remembered the roar, the foam, the darkness. Fear for his friends stabbed through him.
Feathertail? The Squirrelpaw.
Over here.
The reply was so faint, it was nearly lost in the endless pounding of the waterfall. Stormfur turned his head to see Squirrelpaw splayed out on the rock beside him, her dark ginger fur sodden.
Gotta sleep.
Just beyond her, Stormfur could see Brambleclaw, stretched limply on his side. The ThunderClan warrior was staring up at the sky, his breathing fast and shallow. Crowpaw was on Stormfur's other side. With a feeling of horror, he thought the WindClan apprentice was dead, until he saw the faint rise and fall of his flank.
What about Feathertail and Tawny Pelt?
Beginning to panic, Stormfur struggled to sit up. At first, he could not see either his sister or the tortoiseshell she-cat. Then a movement farther around the pool caught his eye. Near the waterfall, Feathertail was helping Tawny Pelt out onto the rock. The ShadowClan warrior was tottering on 3 legs, and as soon as she reached solid ground, she collapsed and lay without moving. Feathertail hauled herself out, her gray fur plastered to her sides so it looked almost black. She settled down beside Tawny Pelt and gave her shoulder a couple of feeble licks.
Thanks, StarClan. We all made it.
He vaguely knew they had to find shelter, that if they went on lying here, they were vulnerable to predators like the eagle. But he was too exhausted to move. He gave his drying fur a few licks, but even that was too much effort. He lay still, his senses drifting, his gaze fixed unseeingly on the rocks beside the pool. As his senses gradually returned, he noticed that they were lying in a curved bowl of rock, open on the side where the stream surged out of the pool and headed down the valley. Boulders covered the ground on either bank, a couple of spindly trees rooted among them. Light shivered on the water. The rain had almost stopped, and the clouds were thinning out. Above Stormfur's head, rainbows danced in the spray thrown up by the waterfall. A thin beam of sunlight splashed on the rocks a tail length away from him. He dragged himself painfully into it and sighed with pleasure at the warmth on his fur. A few heartbeats later, he thought he saw a flash of movement. He blinked, straining to focus his eyes. For a moment, all was still. Then he caught another flicker on the far side of the pool. His fur prickled.
We're being watched.
Stormfur narrowed his eyes, gazing hard at the boulders near the waterfall.
Brambleclaw, look, over there.
What?
The ThunderClan warrior raised his head, peered around, and lay down again.
Can't see anything.
There.
Stormfur hissed as movement flickered again, this time a tail length closer. He flexed his claws, knowing how helpless he and his friends were to defend themselves. Then a gray-brown shape detached itself from the rock and began padding toward him around the edge of the pool. It was a cat. Before Stormfur could move, another cat appeared, and then another, a whole group of cats moving silently away from the rocks where they had been hidden, camouflaged against the boulders, as if they were carved from stone themselves. They sat on the edge of the pool, staring unblinkingly at the group of half-drowned travelers. Stormfur swallowed hard. These cats were like none he had ever seen before, uniformly gray-brown with dull, flattened fur. Then one moved into the sunlight, and he realized that their fur was covered with thick streaks of mud, helping them to blend into the rocks and hiding the real color of their pelts. Stormfur sat up, his muscles shrieking a protest. He prodded Squirrelpaw with one paw.
Sit up very slowly. Whatever you do, don't say anything out loud.
Squirrelpaw lifted her head, then saw the watching cats and tried to scramble up with alarm flaring in her green eyes. Her movement disturbed Brambleclaw, who jumped up at once. Stormfur managed to get to his paws and stand beside him, thankful to have the strong ThunderClan warrior with him as they faced danger. Brambleclaw glanced around for the other cats.
Feathertail, Tawny Pelt, over here, now. You too, Crowpaw.
There was a commanding rasp in his voice, even though it shook with exhaustion. Crowpaw struggled up, for once not arguing, and went to help Feathertail. Tawny Pelt was leaning against her shoulder, hardly able to move. The three of them limped around the pool until they could bunch together with Stormfur and the others, their eyes wide and scared as they watched the strange cats. Stormfur knew they were too shaken and exhausted to defend themselves. But in spite of his fear, a pang of curiosity stabbed him. He wanted to know more about these strangers who looked so different from any other cats he had known. The thought even flashed through his mind that they might help with food and shelter. Then he reminded himself that he and his friends were unlikely to be made welcome after trespassing on the strange cat's territory, and the best they could expect was to be driven off. He hardly dared to breathe as the first cat approached and studied them all carefully. Padding closer to Stormfur, he gave him an especially long scrutiny, barely sparing a glance for the cats on the other side of him. Stormfur tried to meet the staring yellow eyes, wondering uneasily what it was about him that interested the mud-clad cat so much.
Is this the one?
A tabby she-cat stepped forward eagerly. She spoke in the same language as the clan cats, though the sound of the words was strange to Stormfur's ears, and the question more confusing still. He watched her as she drew closer, her lithe body balancing easily on the slippery stones at the edge of the pool.
Is this what we've hoped for?
The first cat's head whipped around, and he glared at the speaker.
Silence, Brooke. Who are you? Have you traveled far?
What are these, mud warriors? We're more than a match for them.
Stormfur felt heartened by the ShadowClan cat's abrasive courage.
Yes, we've come a long way. Can you help us?
Brambleclaw interrupted her with a warning look, then turned to the strange cat.
We are travelers trying to cross the mountains. We're not looking for trouble, but if you are enemies, we can fight.
We have no wish for fighting. Your journey has brought you to the tribe of rushing water.
You are welcome if you come in friendship.
The tabby she-cat looked at Stormfur with a glow in her amber eyes. Stormfur remembered that Midnight the Badger had spoken of cats who lived in tribes instead of clans. These must be the cats she meant, though she had said nothing to suggest the clan cats would encounter them on their journey home. Surely she must have known that they would come across the tribe as they crossed the mountains. Stormfur reminded himself that he had instinctively trusted Midnight. If the tribe had been dangerous, she would have warned them or told them to go the other way. Instead, she had implied that this route had been laid down for them.
Does that mean she thought we were destined to meet the tribe?
As the she-cat spoke, another of the strangers came padding up to look at Stormfur with a gleam in his eyes.
Come on, Crag. We should take this one to Stone's Tower.
Brambleclaw stepped forward to confront Crag, while Stormfur tensed his muscles in readiness for a fight.
You're taking him nowhere without us. We want to talk to your leader.
As Crag motioned the other cat back with an angry flick of his tail, the ThunderClan warrior relaxed slightly.
We only want to travel in peace. My name is Brambleclaw of ThunderClan.
Crag bowed his head while stretching out one paw, an odd but polite gesture.
My name is Craig with Eagle's Nest.
And I am Brooke where small fish swim.
Crag gave her a disapproving look, as if he was not happy that she had put herself forward. His gaze flicked past Brambleclaw and rested again on Stormfur.
What is this one's name?
Stormfur tried to push down the uncomfortable feeling that this cat's fascination gave him.
I'm Stormfur. I come from RiverClan.
Stormfur.
I'm Squirrelpaw.
And I'm Crowpaw. I'm Feathertail, and this is Tawnypelt. Please, can you help her? Her shoulder is badly injured.
Stormfur's sister fixed anxious blue eyes on Crag. Brambleclaw glared at Feathertail with a hiss of disapproval. This was no time to be admitting weakness to strangers. Instantly, Crowpaw stepped forward.
She's right. This clan might have a medicine cat who could help.
Your words are strange to us, but we will help. Come with us now, and our leader will speak with you.
Hang on. How far are we going?
He was still shaky on his legs, but he was obviously trying hard to sound fit to defend himself.
Not far.
Stormfur glanced at the watching cats around the edge of the pool.
What else can we do, except go with them? We need to rest.
He said nothing of his own misgivings about Crag's penetrating gaze. After all, any cat would stare if he found 6 half-drowned strangers in his territory. Brambleclaw nodded.
All right, we'll come.
Good.
Crag led the way along the edge of the pool, leaped up the first few rocks beside the waterfall, and then vanished behind the sheet of foaming water. Stormfur stared in astonishment, half expecting the strange cat to come hurtling down into the pool again, knocked off his paws by the waterfall. Then Brooke stepped forward, gesturing with her tail.
This is the path of the rushing water. Come, it is safe.
The rest of the cats had risen to their paws and gathered around them. Stormfur felt uneasy that he and his friends were being herded after Crag as if they were prisoners. But he had no choice but to follow the mud-covered cats and scramble up the rocks. It was a hard climb after the fall, especially for Tawnypelt, who was limping heavily. Halfway up,
She stumbled and almost slipped back into the pool until Brooke darted forward to steady her. The ShadowClan warrior flinched away from her.
I'm fine.
As Stormfur hauled himself up to where Crag had disappeared, he saw the tribe cat waiting for him on a narrow ledge of rock leading behind the waterfall. A dark hole gaped at the end of it.
I'm not going in there!
You'll be fine.
There is no danger.
He padded confidently along the path and stood at the mouth of the hole. Stormfur swallowed. They had to trust these cats. There was no way they could make it through the mountains without food and rest.
Come on.
Taking the lead, he edged along the path, pressing himself against the rock as far as possible from the sheet of thundering water. It was barely a tail length away from him. Spray misted his fur, and the rock underneath his paws was cold and slippery. Too tense to turn around, he could not be sure that the other cats were following him. He felt as if he were walking alone into endless, thundering darkness. But the gaping hole led into a cave with steep, rocky walls, stretching nearly to the top of the waterfall. Stormfur paused on the threshold, peering past Crag at soaring walls that ran with water. The scent of many more strange cats drifted out to him, hidden in the shadows around the edge of the cave.
What's in there?
She was shivering, her pelt so sodden that it looked almost as dark as Crowpaw's. Crowpaw brushed against her flank.
Whatever happens, we'll be there together.
Stormfur suspected he was not supposed to hear that. He had to stop himself from spitting at Crowpaw or shooting an angry glare at his sister. There were far more pressing things to think about right now. Crag waved his tail once again and padded into the cave, turning back to check that the others were behind him.
I don't like this. How do we know what we're going to find in there?
We don't, but we've got to face it. Everything on this journey happens for a reason. We owe it to the clans to see this through.
We never thought it would be easy.
Stormfur tried to shake off the deep sense of dread that overcame him at the thought of setting paw inside the cave.
Well, if we have to do it, let's get on with it.
Crowpaw pushed forward and led the way inside. Stormfur followed, the other cats crowding behind him. As he gazed around, he heard Tawny Pelt mew quietly, as much to reassure herself as the rest of them.
StarClan will be with us, even here.
Chapter 8.
If a cat leaps at you, roll onto your back. Then you can attack his belly with your claws. Try it.
Leafpaw waited as her mentor crouched in front of her and then leaped into the air. Rolling over, as Cinderpelt had told her, she dug her hind paws into the medicine cat's belly and flung her off to one side.
Good. That's enough for now.
She scrambled to her paws, awkward because of her injured leg. The two cats had been training all morning in the sandy hollow, and though thick, gray clouds covered the sky, Leafpaw's rumbling belly told her it must be close to sun-high. She had enjoyed the session with her mentor. The exercise had been a good distraction from her worries about the clan and the two legs, not to mention Squirrelpaw and the other cats who were traveling with her. She followed Cinderpelt down into the ravine. Before they reached the entrance to the gorse tunnel, Leafpaw heard a patrol returning close behind them. Turning, she saw Firestar, Dustpelt, and Sorreltail. Firestar looked more worried than ever, while Dustpelt's brown tabby fur was bristling and his tail lashed furiously from side to side. Cinderpelt limped over to meet Firestar, while Leafpaw hurried to Sorreltail's side.
What in StarClan's name is going on?
WindClan. They've been stealing prey from us.
Leafpaw remembered the thin, desperate cats who had chased them out of their territory, and knew that she was not surprised at the news.
We found scraps of rabbit fur and bones by the stream near 4 trees. They reeked of WindClan scent.
It's because the rabbits have vanished.
She pushed aside a guilty memory of how she had taken fish from RiverClan.
It's still against the warrior code. Dustpelt was furious.
So I see.
She followed her friend down the gorse tunnel to find Firestar and Dustpelt standing beside the fresh kill pile. Her belly lurched when she saw how small it was.
Look at it! How is that gonna feed the clan? You'll have to do something about WindClan, Firestar.
No, we all know that Tallstar wouldn't allow his warriors to steal prey unless his clan was in real trouble.
Tallstar might not know what's going on. Besides, ThunderClan is in trouble too. It's not as if we have prey to spare.
I know.
I'm worried about Ferncloud. She's already lost a lot of weight, and she still has 3 kits to feed.
If this goes on, I'll have to start rationing. But meanwhile, we will do something about WindClan. I promise.
Whirling around, he bounded across the clearing and leaped to the top of the high rock. As he yowled out the summons, the rest of the clan began to appear at once. Leafpaw was shocked to see how lean they were. She had never really noticed before the gradual change from day to day as prey got harder to find. But now, they looked more like skinny WindClan cats than sturdy, forest-born ThunderClan warriors. Dustpelt was right that Ferncloud in particular looked gaunt and exhausted. Her kits were thinner too, and they trailed after their mother as if they had no energy left to play.
Are we all slowly going to starve to death?
Leafpaw listened anxiously as Firestar told the rest of the clan what the patrol had discovered. Wails of indignation broke out at the news that WindClan cats had trespassed onto ThunderClan territory and stolen prey.
WindClan needs to be taught a lesson. I've had to sniff a rabbit in days.
We should attack now.
No, things are bad enough without us looking for a battle.
Mousefur didn't argue, though she muttered something under her breath, and Cloudtail lashed his tail. Leafpaw saw Brightheart meow a few words to him, trying to calm him down.
What are you going to do? Go and ask them nicely not to steal our food? Do you think they'll take any notice?
More voices were raised in protest, with more than one cat echoing Mousefur's demand to attack.
No, I'm going to talk to Tallstar. He's a noble, trustworthy cat. Maybe he doesn't know that his warriors have been stealing prey.
And what good will talking do? Blackstar didn't listen when you talked to him.
If you ask me, you're crossing clan boundaries far too often. The last cat to ignore borders like that was Tigerstar.
Leafpaw winced at the old she-cat's suggestion that their leader was anything like the murderous Tigerstar. She wasn't the only cat to be shocked. Several cats turned on Speckletail, hissing fiercely, but when Firestar replied, his voice was calm.
Tigerstar wanted to satisfy his greed for power. All I want is to make peace, and as for Blackstar, Tallstar has always been more reasonable.
That's right! Remember when Bluestar wanted to fight WindClan? Tallstar was ready to make peace then.
But there wasn't a shortage of prey back then.
Right. Some cats will do anything if their bellies are empty.
Leafpaw listened in dismay as yowls broke out around her, agreeing with Mousefur. She spotted her mother, Sandstorm, exchanging an anxious glance with Graystripe. Firestar signaled with his tail for silence.
That's enough. My mind is made up. All the clans are in trouble together now. There is no time to start fighting one another.
Be careful, Firestar. You may go in peace, but the other clans might not see it that way.
She glanced at Leafpaw, reminding her of their narrow escape from WindClan only a few days ago.
I know. But WindClan will have to respect a patrol that looks strong enough to fight back. I'll make it clear to Tallstar that there will be trouble if he can't control his warriors and keep them on their own side of the border. But we won't be looking for a fight. With StarClan's help, we can avoid that.
Leafpaw's mind filled with images of the scarred moorland she had seen when she visited WindClan territory, and the desperation of the warriors who had chased her. Every hair on her pelt shrank from the idea of attacking WindClan and making their plight even worse.
This is a bad time for all of us. We should be trying to help one another. Why don't we all share the fish in the river? There are still plenty of those.
That's for RiverClan to say, not us.
Fishing's too difficult.
She noticed that some of the other cats were giving her suspicious looks, as if they were wondering what she knew about fishing. Embarrassed, she scuffled her forepaws on the ground.
It was just an idea.
But not one we can use.
Anxious not to draw any more attention to herself, Leafpaw bowed her head and sat looking at her paws while Firestar chose the cats who would make up the patrol going to WindClan.
Graystripe, of course. Sandstorm, Dustpelt, Thornclaw. Ashfur, And you, Cinderfeld. Tall Star will listen to our medicine cat if he won't listen to me.
Leafpaw realized that he had not chosen any of the cats who had been arguing for an attack straight away, though he had included some formidable fighters.
That patrol won't need to run, that's for sure.